first time Sarah heard it, she thought the monitor was picking up interference. 3:17 a.m. The glowing numbers on the nightstand radio burned into her sleep-deprived retinas as she fumbled for the device. On screen, 6-month-old Lily slept peacefully in her crib, the night vision camera casting everything in eerie green tones. But the sound, a wet clicking noise, like tiny fingers dragging across the microphone. "Mark," she whispered, shaking her husband's shoulder. He grunted, rolling over. "It's just static." Then it came again. Not static, not the white noise they kept playing to help Lily sleep. A giggle, high-pitched and bubbling with the kind of joy only infants possess. Except Lily's mouth wasn't moving. Sarah's breath caught as the rocking chair in the corner of the nursery began to move. Empty. By morning, she'd almost convinced herself she imagined it. Victorian houses creaked. Old wiring caused interference. Then she saw the handprints. Tiny, smudged impressions along the baseboard near the sealed-up fireplace. 5 fingers each, no bigger than a quarter. Sarah crouched, her knees popping, and touched one. The wallpaper was slightly warm. Probably from the previous owners, Mark said when she showed him. He ran his thumb over the stains. Kids get into everything. But when he tried to scrub them away, the prints darkened instead, as if absorbing the moisture. That night, the breathing started. It wasn't Lily's. Sarah knew the rhythm of her daughter's sleep sounds by heart, the little sighs, the occasional snuffle. This was different, shallow, gasping, the sound of something struggling to remember how lungs worked. The camera showed nothing but Lily's sleeping form, yet the breathing grew louder, closer, until Sarah swore she felt warm, sour air against her own cheek. Mark unplugged the monitor. For 3 nights they slept in silence. Then Lily developed the birthmark, a pale, splotchy thing on her left thigh. Completely normal, the pediatrician said, barely glancing up from her chart. But when Sarah examined it under the black light they'd used for a Halloween party, the mark glowed faintly, in the exact shape of a small, perfect handprint. The crawl space smelled of turned earth and sour milk. Mark pried up the loose floorboard beneath the nursery, his flashlight beam trembling. The space was barely large enough for a child, but something had been there recently. A thick layer of dust showed unmistakable drag marks. At the far end, half buried in the dirt, an ancient baby monitor, its bakelite casing cracked, speaker grill clogged with something dark and fibrous. Beneath it lay a yellowed newspaper from October 1923. Sarah's hands shook as she unfolded it. The headline screamed, "Infant buried in walls." The article described a funeral director's wife who'd bricked her stillborn daughter into the nursery fireplace. Neighbors reported hearing laughter from the chimney weeks later. The final line made Sarah's throat close. The child was said to have been born with an extra set of teeth. Lily stood in her crib at 3:17 a.m., not crying, not babbling, just standing perfectly still, facing the corner where the rocking chair sat motionless. On the monitor, Sarah watched her daughter reach toward empty air. Then Lily's head turned, slowly, too slowly. She looked directly into the camera. "Come see," she said, in a voice that wasn't hers. The wallpaper behind the crib peeled back in a long, wet strip, revealing dozens of tiny handprints glowing faintly in the dark. They moved. Sarah's scream never left her throat. The moment Lily spoke, her muscles locked. Not paralysis, but something deeper. An instinct older than language warning her, "Don't let it know you're watching." On screen, the handprints swarmed across the wall like spiders converging behind Lily's crib. The wallpaper bulged, split, peeled away in sticky ribbons to reveal the plaster beneath. Except it wasn't plaster. Pulsing, vein tissue stretched taut across the studs. Mark slept through it all. When Sarah finally willed her limbs to move and shook him awake, the monitor showed only Lily asleep in her crib, the wallpaper pristine. "You're exhausted," he mumbled. "Postpartum anxiety can..." Sarah showed him the newspaper. The funeral home records were worse. The Historical Society's archives reeked of mildew and neglect. The head librarian hesitated before handing over the ledger marked 1880 to 1925. "We don't usually allow access to these," she said, adjusting her glasses. The Winthrop family preferred privacy. Sarah's fingers left damp prints on the brittle pages. The entries started normally. Burials, costs, mourners. Then, in October 1923, stillbirth, female, arranged private interment per Mrs. W's instructions. Special containment procedures followed. The next page had been torn out. Only a single phrase remained scrawled in frantic script. "The milk won't stop coming." Lily refused to nurse that evening. She arched away from Sarah's breast, wailing, her tiny fist batting at the air as if swatting at flies. When Sarah finally gave up and prepared a bottle, Lily drank greedily, then spat up curdled clots that squirmed in the dim nursery light. Mark called the pediatrician. Sarah checked the monitor. The camera angle had shifted. Instead of showing Lily's crib, it now pointed at the sealed fireplace. Something glistened between the bricks, thick, yellowish droplets oozing from the mortar. She might have dismissed it as condensation, if not for the tiny hand pressing against the inside of the hearth. The knocking started at midnight, not from the front door, not from the windows, from inside the walls. A child's rhythm, the same pattern Lily used when banging her high chair tray. Mark tore the nursery wallpaper down at dawn. Beneath the floral print, the plaster was warm and spongy. It yielded to his putty knife like rotten fruit, revealing a honeycomb of tunnels chewed through the studs. Each bore the same sticky residue they'd found in the crawl space, and the smell. "Like breast milk left in the sun," Sarah whispered. Mark gagged. "We need to leave, now." But when they tried to lift Lily from her crib, her onesie was soaked through with the same yellowish fluid seeping from the walls. Her birthmark had spread. The emergency room doctor didn't believe them. "Contact dermatitis," he declared, scribbling on Lily's chart as she screamed through her examination. The birthmark now covered half her torso, a sprawling hand-shaped bruise that pulsed under the UV light. Sarah clutched her daughter close. "You don't understand. It's in our house." Stress exacerbates skin conditions. The doctor handed her a steroid cream prescription. "Try to rest." Mark waited until they were outside to crumple the paper. "We're not going back." But the Holiday Inn wouldn't take them. Neither would the bed and breakfast. At the third motel, the clerk took one look at Lily's oozing skin and crossed herself. The car smelled of sour milk all the way home. The house welcomed them back. Sarah felt it the moment they crossed the threshold. A shift in the air, like stepping into a nursery moments before a baby wakes. The walls were damp, the floor sticky, and the monitor. It turned on by itself as they carried Lily upstairs. The screen showed the nursery empty, crib stripped bare, rocking chair still. Then the camera tilted down. The floorboards were pried up. The crawl space yawned open. Something moved in the darkness below. Not crawling, lurching. Sarah burned the newspaper. Flames consumed the 1923 article first, blackening the words infant buried in walls before she could change her mind. The funeral home ledger took longer, its thick pages curling like dying fingers. Mark watched from the doorway. Will this even work? I don't know. Sarah poked the ashes. But fire purifies, right? A drop of yellow liquid fell onto the charred remains, then another. She looked up. The ceiling was weeping. Lily's fever spiked at 3:17 a.m. Her skin burned. Her pupils dilated until only black remained. When Sarah tried to cool her with a wet cloth, the birthmark gripped her wrist. 5 tiny indentations forming where fingers would be. The monitor flickered to life. Not the digital one they'd bought. The Bakelite relic from the crawl space, its cracked speaker hissing, "Hungry." The walls answered. Plaster split. Studs groaned. The house exhaled a breath of spoiled milk and wet earth as something pulled itself free from the nursery walls. Sarah clutched Lily tighter. Mark raised the fireplace poker. The rocking chair began to move. It wasn't a ghost. Sarah knew that the moment it emerged, too solid for a spirit, too wrong for anything living. The thing that had been Winthrop's stillborn daughter moved in jerks and spasms, its distended belly dragging across the nursery floor. It had too many teeth. Not the neat pearls of Lily's first incisors, but jagged shards jutting at unnatural angles. Its mouth stretched too wide. Its skin glistened with the same yellowish fluid seeping from Lily's pores. Mark swung the poker. The metal passed clean through, as if striking smoke. Then the thing latched onto his arm, its gums clamping down with terrible pressure. No. Sarah lunged forward. The Bakelite monitor shrieked. Lily answered. Her fever broke with a sound like tearing parchment. The birthmark peeled away in one viscous sheet, revealing unblemished skin beneath. At the same instant, the thing convulsed, its too wide mouth opening in a silent wail as it unraveled, flesh dissolving into curdled milk that pooled on the floorboards. The wall stopped weeping. The rocking chair stilled. Only the monitor continued its tinny scream, the sound warping into something almost like words. Not her. Not yet. Not her. Not yet. Then silence. Sarah checks Lily's skin every night with the black light. The birthmark hasn't returned. The pediatrician calls it a miracle. Mark refuses to speak of what happened. But sometimes, when Sarah wakes at 3:17 a.m., she finds Lily standing in her crib, not crying, not babbling, just staring at the spot where the wallpaper meets the ceiling, waiting, listening, smiling at something only she can see.